Hello and welcome to the Outcomes Over Hours show. I'm Tina Patterson and I'm so excited with who my guest is today. Her name is Bridgette Smith, and wait till you hear about her credentials because she is an absolute powerhouse. So Bridgette is the founder and CEO of Founder Playbook, which is an amazing company. And what it does is it helps women, people of color, minorities, enabling them to be investor ready with their own startups. Not only this, she has an amazing background, a couple of decades of experience in large corporates and some of the best known names on the planet, be it Google, GE, Discover, United Airlines. And she started out as a tech writer, but she got promoted and made it up to several C-suite level roles. She has had her education at places like Harvard, Yale, UC Berkeley. She's also an author. And when you have a look at her background, you'll see all the numerous awards that she has been given over the years. So Bridgette, welcome to the Outcomes Over Hours show.
Thank you very much. I'm excited.
Absolutely. Well, I would love to hear, your background is so extensive, and I'd love to hear your leadership lessons and for you to share them with listeners around how has your own leadership style changed, whether from before the pandemic, during it, and now after. Can you share some of your leadership lessons and advice that you've got along the way?
Sure. So Tina, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited. I'm in my home office here in California. I've got my awards behind me from my TV life back in the day. So I'm feeling good energy. The leadership lesson, and my leadership style, I would say hasn't changed. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, now, right? It's the same. I really lead, I find myself leaning into being a servant leader, which for me means always putting people first. How can I serve you? How can I support you? How can I move barriers and challenges out of your way so that you can shine and you can be successful? At the end of the day, people are what create outcomes. And so if we keep that as leaders in the forefront, it's not about us. That's what real leaders know. It's not about us. It's about the team that we're gifted to be a part of their life and their journey in their career. So how can we elevate them? By elevating them, they reach their goals, right? By supporting and sponsoring them, they're able to shine. They're able to hit the ball out of the park and over deliver, become overachievers. So for me, being a servant leader is a common thread in every space that I'm in. And to me, I think it's very normal, but I think when I enter these rooms and these spaces, people tell me it's unusual to have a C-suite or an executive leader who puts people first. And the best leaders I've ever had in my inner circle have treated me that way. And so that's where I've learned those lessons.
Oh, I love that. And I completely agree with you. And I fully subscribe to the servant leadership model as well. I agree. I think the bosses who have had the biggest impact on my career, often at the end of a one-on-one, even at the start, they'd say, how can I help you? Where do you need my help? And that flip. So why do you think there aren't more leaders who follow this? Because the results are there. Why do you think people don't follow it?
Well, I've worked in many spaces, as you've described, and in corporate America, it's many leaders are more concerned about status and headcount, P&L, power. And so it's hard to find leaders who really don't fit that box. Most leaders are in that box. The exceptional leaders, the leaders who really know that you can't get far if you don't bring people with you. You can't get far if you don't elevate and have a plan for a successor to come in after you as you grow. So more often than not, leaders are trying to contain and control their territory and even grow their territory. And I did say territory. Territory is the right word here. And so that's not my style. I'm allergic to it. I don't thrive in it. I don't grow in it. There's so many reasons why those spaces don't work for me. And so because I know these things, it's like having, if you ever had a bad date, or maybe you were in a bad relationship, you know what doesn't work, and you can see those signs and those signals if you were to start a new relationship and those behaviors start to show themselves. You should flee. And so that's what it's like in leadership spaces. If you're an employee and you're working for a leader and you've had a bad leader before, and you see the same signs and signals and behaviors in the new leader that you're now working with, there's a problem there, and you should figure out how to handle that. You don't necessarily have to flee, but you may want to address it and have a conversation, a very candid conversation with that leader who, again, is operating with their own agenda, but now you report into that person. So how are you going to adjust to that new space? Everybody can't change leaders or jobs. They have to make adjustments in how they deal with those humans. So yeah, being a servant leader for me is just, it's daily. It's not something I think about. It's just how I operate. But other people, more often than not, corporate America is not built on servant leadership. Corporate America, in most spaces, is built on hierarchy, authority, power, influence, territory, as I mentioned earlier, and all of the pieces that just make capitalism what it is.
It's interesting. It's almost counterintuitive in some ways, because if you focus on your people, and then they get the amazing outcomes, because there are so many studies that we both know of that your productivity goes up when employee engagement goes up, and the direct leader is one of the key influences on your engagement and your productivity. So by that model that you espouse to, it actually then gives the leaders what they're looking for in terms of being able to be promoted further up the chain as such, when they focus on their people. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. And what are the skills that you think, now that we're not in the office all the time together and we're often via a screen like we are now, what are the skills that you think that leaders should be amplifying or focusing on to be able to lead, in addition to servant leadership, to lead in our new normal?
Sure. If I could just comment on the last question. Yeah. I think a lot of bad leadership is driven by culture. So even if you're a great leader and you're in a space where the culture is, not doesn't have a servitude atmosphere, sometimes in order, it's survival to adjust to the space that you're in order to maintain your role, in order to keep your position that you've been hired into. So I just wanted to add that ingredient to the conversation. Sometimes leaders, even if you think about politicians, they all start with great intent. They're going to, serve their community and serve their constituents. And then sometimes those same politicians may not, years and years later, maybe they take a wrong turn and they do things that don't align with their original values. That could be the same case in corporate America with leaders, is that they enter work cultures that don't necessarily align with their own personal values, and then they they acquiesce. They begin to fit into the culture that they now have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and they get through it only to quote unquote survive and then move on to the next opportunity. So unfortunately, that's real, and so I just wanted to kind of talk about culture, because that is definitely a reason for some of the bad leadership that is perpetuating in some of these corporate spaces. To answer your question around what are some, can you repeat your question? Because I forgot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just thinking though, it's what I see and hear a lot of the system that you're in, and with system, culture is a really big part of that. That is such a big influence on how people behave in the workplace. Absolutely. And it takes more than one to be able to obviously shift that system. So yeah, really interesting point. Yeah, I was interested in your views on what are the leadership skills that you think that leaders should be thinking about now and amplifying when you think about the coming decade or so, where we're not necessarily all in the office together at exactly the same time. What are the skills that you think that leaders, aside from servant leadership, should be thinking about so that they can absolutely thrive when we're not all together?
Yeah, I think I think it's basic. When the workday starts, say your workday starts at 8 and it ends at 5 or 6. I think as leaders, we all know that that person has a life before 8. That person has a life when they turn off their computer and shut it down at 5 or 6. They have a life. And so that life might be motherhood, fatherhood, taking care of an elder person in their family, or even doing self-love and self-care for themselves. And they have other priorities besides work. So I really believe as a leader that you have to respect the people that are on your team, respect the people that are that you have the privilege of working with. If you see people as humans and as real people, they're not just there because they're the PM or they're your admin or they're your peer in some capacity or they're your strategic partner, across the aisle, horizontal leader or vertical partner that you have to deal with. Understand who they are. I think if you really approach people and care about them, and you don't have to be their friend, but I feel like respect is paramount when you're having a conversation with someone, to respect their space. If they block their calendar, as an example, and they routinely go for a walk their dog, or exercise or whatever during lunch, don't schedule meetings over lunch. It's just it's disrespectful to take that time away from them, because again, they use that space and that time for their own human reasons, right? For their own human growth. And again, it's not trite. It's very important to respect a person who has boundaries. I used to have an executive assistant who constantly overlaid meetings over blocks of time that I needed to be creative and think and produce. And she would always say, well, so-and-so wants to meet with you and this is when they're available. And so I didn't think it would be a problem. It is a problem, because this is the time that I've allocated that I need in order to get work done. So these are the boundaries that I created. So I had to help her understand what my, boundaries are, so that she could then articulate that when she represents me outside of our conversations, when she talks to other people. So I think respect is number one. I think the other one is giving people the autonomy to do the work that you've hired them to do. So again, in this COVID space, we many people still work from home, or work from home and go in the office. But when they work from home, sometimes I think we work harder, to be honest with you. We work longer hours. We are more involved in our laptops and our work, because there are fewer distractions than when you go into the office. And so I think giving people the autonomy to do high quality work, because that's why they're on your team. That's why you hire them. That's, you're supporting their work, and they're supporting you to do the work you need to get done as a leader as well, because their inputs are what you showcase when you meet with your leaders, right? That's how leadership, we often are macro managers. So the people that we hire on our teams to do the work, they need the autonomy to get the work done.
Yeah.
So that would be the other one that I would recommend. And then the third one is about, I wrote down support, listen, and sponsor. 3 words, but they're all very important. So to support the person on the other end of the conversation, the one-on-ones, in the team spaces, et cetera, supporting the team, asking them, what do you need? How can I support you? What barriers do you have? How can I help mitigate those barriers? Things like that. Listening. So listen more than you talk, right? My mom used to always say, you have 2 ears for a reason, Bridget, be quiet. So you have to listen more than you direct people, because they actually have the answers, but if you don't allow them to share with you, because you have to stop talking a little sometimes as leaders, you don't always know all the answers. You have to listen to your team. So listen more than you speak. And then finally, sponsor. So many of us as Black women, people of color in the workplace, marginalized people, underrepresented peoples, LGBTQ people, people with disabilities. We all have something that we're going through, regardless if you're underrepresented or not. So I think sponsoring people and saying, if they're looking for a promotion and they're working really hard, or if they're looking for a transfer to a different team and they need your support, they want you to help open a door. They want you to do an introduction. They want you to write a letter of recommendation. They want you to speak positively on their behalf when they're not in the room. Do that for them.
Yeah.
Do that for them, because you know what? Somebody did that for you. So as a leader, you must give back. And so those are just a few things that that come to mind when you ask that question.
Oh, I love that so much, Bridgette. And one of the things that I think, and sponsorship is such an important part of helping people and their careers grow. It doesn't take a lot of time and even not a lot of thought to be able to do it and to do it well. Like firing off an email can take 2 minutes, but it can literally change the trajectory of someone's career doing it. So yeah, I'm completely agree on the importance of that sponsorship there as well. Fantastic. And what is the best, most practical advice that you've been given? Because I know you work smarter just based on everything that you've accomplished. What's the best advice that you've been given in this space about how to work smarter?
The best advice, I would say the best advice to work smarter is I have so many things going through my mind. One of the things that goes through my mind is to trust your instincts and to believe in yourself. So, because why? You could waste time if you second guess yourself. Should I go in this? Is this the right decision? What is so-and-so going to think? Do I have enough research to add credibility to my recommendation? Do the work. Believe in the work that you've created as a leader, and your team has obviously contributed to that outcome, to that product that you're putting forward. But believe in yourself, because why? You did not get here. You did not get to this place as a leader by accident. Right? You've taken certain very measured steps, and sometimes everything doesn't go as planned. So of course there are pitfalls and peaks and valleys along the way, but you're still here. So you got here for a reason, and you're here. So I would say one of the things I would highly recommend is rather than try to figure out what other people want from you, and are you giving them something that they will bless? I would say, please be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. You know what? So many people are not. They are leaders. They are delivering what will get them in good graces. They are delivering, and I know this firsthand, sometimes again, as I mentioned earlier, to fit into a box that may not align with your values, you kind of conform in some ways. And so I don't recommend that. But so instead of, so if you find yourself in spaces where you're not exactly sure, it's not always comfortable, I would say, don't second guess yourself, be true to yourself. You landed where you are for a reason. There's a purpose behind it. Deliver what you have to say in a gracious way. And, tone makes a big difference, with humility, with authenticity, but at the same time, don't change it just because you think the other person or the other people on the other side of the message will take it different than how you expect them to take it. Deliver it and then you will see the outcomes. More than often, in my personal experience in the C-suite level, when I walk into a room and sometimes I definitely don't agree with the conversation. I don't agree with the direction that we're going in for whatever reason. I don't believe it's the right direction to take. I speak my truth. And more often than not, somebody else around the table actually feels the same way and thinks the same thing, but they were reluctant to speak up. And then by me speaking up, I've opened up a conversation for us to make sure that we're actually vetting the decision properly and not just going along because one of the leaders in the room is more dominant than, say, I am in that same space, and that leader is allowing the room to go off into the sunset because that's the direction he or she would like to see it, right? So as a leader, I think it's paramount that you speak your truth, be authentic to what you believe in, and don't second guess your decisions, because your decisions are why you are in the position that you're in today.
Oh, I love that so much, Bridgette. And talking about speaking your truth, believing in yourself and aligning with purpose, can you just share for people a little bit about what you're doing now and a little bit about Founder Playbook? Because it's pretty exciting and inspiring.
Oh, happy to. So Founder Playbook is a brand new company. I started it this year in 2023. So it's all about helping startups and founders who look like me. So women, people of color, and LGBTQ become investor ready, scale their businesses, and grow, right? And so there are lots of statistics that say that every description I just gave you, women, people of color, LGBTQ, that we are not in a position to be successful, or we're not going to win, or the data may show that we're not going to be invested in by venture capital companies or funds because of those reasons, because of things that have nothing to do with what we're building or the innovation or the disruptive products that we're bringing to market, is purely based on biases. And so I am positioning and helping founders to get prepared to have those conversations with investors, whether angel investors or venture capital investors, or there's all kinds of investors, but have those conversations based on what are they building, how are they disrupting the marketplace, what's the product market fit, all the things that matter to investors, the facts, the data, and then positioning themselves as founders to be investable, right? To read the room, to know the criteria before you show up. To know if you're in a room that where the investors have a history, have a track record of investing in underrepresented founders. You're more than, and if you fit their criteria and you check the boxes in terms of the pitch deck that you're putting forth, and the content and the product that you're building, product or service, then I'm positioning founders to win in those spaces. So I am incredibly excited about working with so many founders. In the short time that we've been open for business, I've been flooded with people asking for help, and I'm so excited to be in a position to help them. In addition to that, I also work with fractional executives, so fractional CEOs, CXOs, et cetera, individuals who left corporate America for one reason or another, and they are choosing to just work in a fractional capacity, 20%, 30% of their time for a large corporation, but they're looking for more clients. So I help them build their business as well. And then the third thing that we do at Founder Playbook is we invest. We write checks. We help those founders who need funding to get the funding that they need from other angel investors and venture capital funds, and then we do the same. We put our money where our mouth is as well. So those are the three things that we do, and it's exciting to wake up every day.
Absolutely. It is really inspiring what you're doing, Bridgette. So before we finish up, I'd love to ask you some rapid fire questions. Are you up for it?
I'm ready.
Okay. What is the best purchase you've made in the last few years for less than about $100?
Oh, this is easy. So my husband and I, we take pictures constantly. He loves pictures. So he's got tons of pictures in shoe boxes of his family, and I have the same. And then we've got all these digital pictures. So the most valuable thing that we bought for our new home here in California are picture frames. So we have lots of pictures in every single room, hallways, staircase, living room, every room, kitchen. We have family photos everywhere. And so we showcase those in all these creative picture frames that we found as we travel and as we go to and from different stores and things. We just find little nuanced picture frames that we love, and we put our family pictures in it, and it just makes us happy.
I love it. Love it. And what is the book that you've either recommended or gifted the most to other people?
Well, I pulled this out because I was ready. So this is called Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. So I read this book. Yes, I read this book once, and I decided to buy. I bought 20 copies. Books that I really like, I buy in bulk. And so this is my Christmas gift last year to many people, and the year before that was a different book. But the Year of Yes is kind of my mantra, because I started saying yes, I don't know, many years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I started saying yes to anything that was I felt really excited about and aligned to my purpose and my passion. But I haven't stopped. So it's not a year of yes. I'm working on a decade.
Life of yes.
I'll show you one more book. Look at this book. This is called I Am Enough by Grace Byers. I found this book walking through the bookstore, and I had to have it. So I just ordered 20 copies of this book because I want to gift this book to young, up and coming young girls. And I want them to know that they are enough, because we need to see and hear those messages as often as possible.
Oh, I've got goosebumps, Bridget. I love it. Absolutely love it. And what's the most fearless thing you've done over the last few years?
Fearless. Well, a couple. I moved to California, and California was not on my radar, but moved to California with my husband about 2.5 years ago, and definitely lifestyle shock, and cost of living was way different than Wisconsin, where I'm from. So I would say that was bold, and we did it. And now I can say California's home. So that was definitely a fearless move.
Oh, amazing. And finally, what does outcomes over hours mean to you?
Great question. I believe that outcomes over hours, outcomes are generated by people. So I truly believe that if we as leaders can focus on the people and the relationships and building respect and not seeing ourselves as they versus us or us versus them or a hierarchy, but it's really a team effort, then the outcomes that people generate will be even higher than you expect, because now you've created a sense of community, a sense of ownership, a sense of accountability. And so the outcomes that people generate will actually be higher because of those things, because of relationships, and forget the power influence dynamics. Just focus on the people doing the work, support them where they are, help them elevate themselves. And then the hours don't matter, because they're going to do the work that it takes to get done. And it might even be fewer hours than you expected, because they're working smarter. And they've got the tools and the resources and the autonomy to get the work done. So I think there's outcomes way outweigh the hours that you put into it.
Oh, I love that so much, Bridget. Well, Bridgette Smith, thank you so much for being with me on the Outcomes Over Hours show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.